I'm so grateful that we're coming together in this virtual space tonight to have this conversation. For those of you who have not had an opportunity to meet, my name is Julie Sina, and I serve as an Associate Vice Chancellor working with our Alumni Association and our foundation. And welcome you to this Alumni EmPower Hour, a relaunch of these opportunities for us to come together and have these important conversations about issues in our community and progress that we can move forward on together. Tonight, we're focusing on UCLA's efforts to become a Hispanic-Serving Institution. And our UCLA Alumni Association is thrilled to co-sponsor this event in partnership with colleagues in our UCLA Latino Alumni Association, the UCLA Office of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, and our Office of the UCLA Hispanic-Serving Institutions, our inaugural office. We acknowledge that this is a critical conversation and a campus-wide effort. While UCLA has made great progress in the enrollment and support of Latinx students, there is more work to be done. As UCLA proceeds with our next steps, it's essential to ensure that our alumni are informed, included, and engaged. We also want to acknowledge the important foundational work of the HSI Task Force co-chairs, who led a cross-campus team of leaders that generated a report that is both fundamental and inspiring to UCLA in setting more concrete goals. The co-chairs, Alfred Herrera, Dr. Sylvia Hurtado, and Dr. Velma Ortiz. We appreciate and acknowledge Dr. Hurtado's advocacy through her decades of scholarship in the UCLA School of Education and Information Studies and through her work as special assistant to the chancellor on Latinx issues. Thank you, Dr. Hurtado. Now I'm pleased to pass it on to one of our leaders in our Latino Alumni Association, Andre Snyder, who serves as our University Relations Chair for the UCLA Latino Alumni Association Board of Directors, for more information and to introduce our moderator and our panelists. Welcome, Andres.
Thank you, Julie. My name is Andres Snyder. I am the University Relations Chair for the UCLA Latino Alumni Association. And this is a very happy day for ULA and for me personally. As I was speaking to Dr. Gonzalez before the video began, we've been talking about this event from the beginning of the calendar year, since the fall, when ULA was really looking for a space to feature a discussion about Hispanic-Serving Institution initiative, and to do so in a way that underscores it as a central priority at UCLA. With help of the Alumni Association and specifically Alumni Diversity Programs and the Office of Dr. Denise Pacheco, its Senior Director and our moderator this evening, we have brought together two very important leaders, HSI Director, Dr. Elizabeth Gonzalez, and Vice Chancellor for Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, Anna Spain Bradley. These two leaders are playing key roles in making HSI a reality, and thereby taking another step towards cementing UCLA as the world's leading public university. And now it gives me great pleasure to tell you more about our distinguished speakers. I'll start with Dr. Elizabeth Gonzalez. She is a UCLA alumna and a longtime expert on equity and student success in higher education. Last year, UCLA tapped Dr. Gonzalez as its inaugural Hispanic-Serving Institution Director, working within the Office of the Chancellor. In that role, Dr. Gonzalez is leading UCLA's efforts to apply for and receive recognition as an HSI from the U.S. Department of Education. Dr. Gonzalez is a change agent for equity and social justice. She has designed and implemented federal HSI programs at UC Santa Cruz, San Jose City College, and San Diego City College. She has also coached institutional teams across the US, working collectively on campus-wide efforts to find solutions to moving towards serving Latino and Latina, low-income, and first-generation students. Now I'll introduce Vice Chancellor for Equity, Diversity, Inclusion, and Chief Diversity Officer, and my friend, Anna Spain Bradley. Anna Spain Bradley is the Vice Chancellor for Equity, Diversity, Inclusion, and UCLA's Chief Diversity Officer. As UCLA's Chief Diversity Officer, she leads and advances strategies for enhancing equity, diversity, inclusion, and oversees the university's mechanisms for upholding civil rights protections. Vice Chancellor Spain Bradley also provides strategic advice and engagement on university matters as a member of UCLA's senior leadership team. Dr. Gonzalez and Vice Chancellor Spain Bradley, thank you so much for being with us this evening. Before I pass on the baton back to Denise, who's going to be our moderator, just a reminder, there will be a moderated portion of the program, and then towards the end, there will be a Q&A. If there's Q&A, I believe the process is to drop those into the Q&A button at the bottom, or to email. I don't know, is it Corey or diversity programs is the process, but that will be explained also in the chat. So take it away, Denise.
Thank you, Andres. It's so wonderful to be here. Also, as a double Bruin myself, I think these efforts have been such a long time coming and come on the foundation of incredible history for us at UCLA. Just to add on to what you shared, Andres, logistically, if folks have any questions that they'd like us to ask our two wonderful featured speakers today, please email them. We drop that email address into the chat. You can send those via email and we'll see those questions and can ask them towards the end of our program. So I first just want to start with some questions for Dr. Gonzalez and our Vice Chancellor, Spain Bradley. So we'll start with some questions we have prepared in advance and really thinking about what we saw come through as you all RSVP'd for this important conversation. So if I may, Dr. Gonzalez, start with you. You know, there's over 450 Hispanic-serving institutions across the country in the United States, including Puerto Rico. They serve millions of students, but could you tell us briefly, just to ground our conversation, what does it mean to be a Hispanic-serving institution? Why is that important?
Hi, everyone. I'm so delighted to be here with such an amazing team, and welcome to all the alumni who I can't see you, but I might have met some of you. Welcome, and thank you for spending your afternoon here with us. Denise, yeah, I mean, I think it's a national movement. You know, there's actually over 573 now HSIs, and the numbers were updated just recently by Excelencia in Education. We also now know that there's 401 emerging HSIs. And so UCLA falls under that category because we are at about 23-24% of our undergraduate enrollment self-identifies as Latino. So we are an institution among a growing landscape of HSIs. And so I think that questions comes up too, like, why now? And it's important also to situate this within the history of UCLA. You know, in the beautiful report that you all got, I have it here. You can't see it, but we offer a history and a legacy of Latinos, of underrepresented students at UCLA. And from the inception, you know, UCLA was started by Reginaldo del Valle, right? So we also want to situate this within a history of a larger movement. But I think to answer your question about why now, this is where the system is going, the UC system. President Drake has made it a priority of his to have all 9 undergraduate campuses be designated as an HSI and ANAPISI, which is for Asian American Pacific Islander. And so as a system, we enroll already 25% of undergraduates. So we're headed there also as a system. And I know we'll talk about it a little bit further, but I think now more than ever, universities like UCLA need to really stand firm in our commitment to representation and equity and social justice, given the national landscape. Given that we are a public institution in California, where 40% are Latino, we're in LA, where 52% of graduating seniors are self-identify as Latino. And so we want to be a public institution that we're not just in LA, but we are of LA. And so I think that's why now.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that this is that context and history that you're setting for us. And I know I've worked at UCLA for a number of years, and I'm familiar that there's a lot of incredible services that have been created for students, that including our Latinx students. And so could you tell us a little bit about how, as UCLA, I want to be aspirational, when we achieve this designation as a Hispanic-serving institution, how might that transform the campus and the student services that we have? Will it build on what already is existing and working really well? Will it help to bolster and increase that?
Yeah, well, the designation does make us eligible to go out and compete for federal funding that's allocated for HSIs. So on one end, it'll give us additional funding to innovate, right? So to look at our practices, look at where there might be equity gaps and say, okay, let's go in there, let's try something that we haven't tried before, and innovate new course redesign, new ways of doing advising. So I think innovation is at the core of what it means to be an HSI. And then on the other end, there's so much that is working at UCLA. Like UCLA is recognized for its programs. CCCP, the Center for Community College Partnerships, was awarded the Seal of Excelencia for its transformational work led by Alfred Herrera, right? And so there are those gems across our campus. So then HSI also allows us to scale up, right? And make these very unique and impactful programs that have been proven to bridge equity gaps and scale them up and build models around them. So I think innovation and scaling up is what HSI would allow us to do with those existing programs.
Thank you. Thank you so much. If I can pause, give you a chance, catch your breath, drink some water. I'd love to pass to you for a minute, Vice Chancellor Spain Bradley, and think about what Dr. Gonzalez is sharing within a larger context. That you have done some incredible work as our Vice Chancellor for Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, and really pushing forward that vision in our campus. And so I'm curious about how you might see UCLA's equity, diversity, inclusion mission aligning with the aims of being a Hispanic-serving institution, and where there might be areas of potential synergy, how we might expand both, by working together.
Well, thank you, Denise. Good evening, everyone who's joining us. I just want to take a moment to also thank all of our organizers and co-sponsors and the alumni of UCLA, the Bruins who are alum. You all are phenomenal. I've met many of you over the few years, and if you're joining us from the East Coast, Midwest, some other part of the globe, we either have the tough job this evening of keeping you awake or waking you up. So Dr. Gonzalez and I and Denise were in for an interesting conversation. We'll try to keep it lively. So Denise, to your important question, the way that I would offer the frame is this: UCLA at its core, it's a university. It's also Los Angeles' fourth largest employer. It's a hospital healthcare system. It's a place of transformation and change generationally. There's so much that we mean when we say UCLA. And the one thing, if there is a consensus among the deep and rich community, is that people are our strength. The greatest thing about UCLA are its people, present, alumni included. So if you're looking at it from a people-centered approach, values drive people and people drive mission. So the way that I frame it is UCLA stated its commitment and its values in the frame of equity, diversity, and inclusion a long time ago. We have the principles of community. We have other value-driven frameworks that help us understand who are we as a community? What are the things that we commit to do with and for one another? What are the behaviors that we agree not to do? How does that make a place where people can thrive? And to bring the equity lens, we can't treat every single member of the community in an equality frame without appreciating the special and individual needs that people in the community have. Enter HSI. So like some of the other UCLA commitments, I see HSI as a really important and essential journey. So the status itself is not the goal. The federally designated status, as Dr. Gonzalez nicely explained, It's saying that we are on this journey to be a place where people who identify as Hispanic, Latina, Latino, Latinx can thrive, can be supported, and can help transform what the community and the world looks like when they leave UCLA. So that's the real commitment. And to your point about synergies, there are a lot of synergies. I think we need to take a cross, functional approach around how do we rethink what it means to learn and teach, to do scholarship and research, to provide services in a community that is much more diverse and is value-centered in a different direction than perhaps higher ed and universities were 50 years ago. So it's a dynamic time in higher ed. We've had a lot of dynamic changes here locally and in the UC, and if we look across the country and across the world, this is not for the shy. And we're really, really very blessed to have Dr. Gonzalez and her talents to help drive this mission forward with the support of my office and team and many others who are committed to these values. And at UCLA, EDI is everybody's work. So thank you for the question.
Yes, thank you. I'd love to keep going a little bit in this vein and think and hear you share a little bit of your thoughts around, as you think about that arc, as you think about that context that is holding that container, if we will. What do you see? And we can't predict the future, but as we sit here today, in terms of where do you see there being long-term or future opportunities and challenges for UCLA as we continue on this road towards achieving this designation?
Well, I'll start with some challenges and end on the positive with opportunities. So in terms of challenges, I by training, I am a law professor and human rights advocate, and I had an opportunity a few times in my career to do work at the United Nations, which is the most globally diverse forum one can imagine, with people from every single country in the world. There is both magic in that diversity, but there's also enhanced opportunity for conflict and disagreement. So the way I like to think of it is UCLA is a mini United Nations, and we have representation, multidimensional identity, intersectional identity across the board. So in my seat, I get to see the really amazing innovation that comes from that. There are things happening in our community that absolutely couldn't happen without this unique blend of humanity. There are also ways in which it calls upon all of us to really deepen our understanding and our willingness to learn and understand the complexity of what it means to be human, what it means to communicate, engage in conflict resolution, come to cooperate, come looking for solutions. So to give one example, I think we get often provided by the US government frameworks, legal frameworks, societal frameworks, boxes on identity. Anyone who's spent any time with our student body or has been a student here, those boxes don't represent actual people. Instead, we're many things, we're not one thing. And taking a law or a policy or a goal of receiving HSI status or any other kind of status and translating that into reality that hits the mark, where people have a lived experience of, well, this place is changing for the better. I can now thrive in ways I couldn't before. That takes creativity and real dedication and commitment. So I think we need to afford the space, the resources, the focus to allow one of UCLA's priorities into the future be people, and be understanding what we need to change structurally and otherwise to ensure that a new generation of students can come, be here, experience this, and move on in a really successful way.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'd love to invite you both to share in response to this next question, and maybe just so we can give Vice Chancellor Spain Bradley an opportunity to sip some water, take a breath. I will start with you, Dr. Gonzalez, but if you could share with us, as you've been learning more about the campus, meeting folks, I know you've connected with so many wonderful stakeholders in our community, including many of our alumni. What do you see as potential areas of opportunity for our alumni to get involved, and next steps, even right now, as we're pursuing this designation and in the future maintaining that designation, do you see where might our alumni get involved or connected?
Thank you for the question. And I'm going to pick on Andres here because he is an alumni and he brought this together. Him and you, and you're an alumni, Denise. You served on the HSI task force. And those are just two examples of ways that alumni have already given back to HSI specifically, but in other ways. I'll tell you how I've seen HSI alumni be involved in this past year. In just the short time that I've been here, I've met several alumni at Bruin Day, at the Yield events. They have the experience of what it means to be a Bruin, a lifelong Bruin. And so I've seen alumni really share that perspective and that experience through either in coming to our events or even mentorship. I know that EULA has a mentorship program. So I think that, like, being engaged with our current students and being the voice of experience with them, attending our various events. There were a few alumni, some who flew down for the Latinx Welcome last fall. All of you who are coming to this event. But I think it's really important to stay informed because you also have a voice. And so stay informed on the HSI efforts and help spread the word, right? Spread the word about what it is. Dispel misperceptions about what people think it is. And so I think the voice is another big component. And yeah, tap into your networks to share what UCLA is really doing. And we share that bond that we're alumni. So I think giving back to our students, giving back to enacting our espoused values, we all do that. So those are some ways that I've seen alumni be involved and that you can continue to be involved.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm curious, Vice Chancellor, there's so many touch points and so many stakeholders that your office serves. And I'm curious if you have thoughts about how our alumni might get engaged in this and in the broader vision of increasing equity and inclusion at UCLA.
Thank you, Denise. So I would just say, add on to what Dr. Gonzalez has said, engagement's key. So when we think about the community, it includes our near 47,000 students and almost 50,000 employees, and it includes alum, which Denise, you tell me where are we at in terms of the number of alum?
We're almost at, in terms of Latinx alumni, I think we are almost at 56,000.
Oh, amazing. So we have this rich community, and the one thing that the EDI mission teaches us is we have to be in community to be a community. And that's like a nice little talking point, but what does it actually mean? So for EDI on the university campus and hospital healthcare system, we talk about it in 4 dimensions, that it includes inclusive leadership at all layers, that it includes education, which means different things, and 3, engagement and 4, accountability. It's the engagement piece. So I think for alum, when you remember, but when we see a lot of students who are struggling at UCLA and who are from historically underrepresented and currently marginalized communities and people and identities in America and beyond to be globally inclusive. Part of the challenge is they haven't looped in and they don't feel that there's a place for them. They haven't found people that they feel see them for who they are, value them, and that they belong and that they also can be here and thrive. And that's where alum come in, because you can help inspire, you can see something in someone that they don't yet see themselves. And that very one-on-one touch point to believe in someone in their moment of need is life-changing. We've all had people, hopefully somebody in your life that's done that for you. So mentoring in a word, but more than that, believing in them when they're trying to navigate this very big, complex ecosystem is a really great thing that alumni can do, and that makes the community really thrive.
Yeah, I love where you're going and how that dovetails with what Dr. Gonzalez shared. And you're reminding me of something that Jeannie Oakes, when I was here as a grad student in our School of Education, would talk about, that we all must come to the attention of someone. Every student must come to the attention of someone, that's what facilitates that path forward towards success in any number of ways. And I've heard you, I think, speak about this in many different spaces as well, about the dignity of all people. How do we honor that? How do we recognize that? How do we foster that? And I'm curious, I would love to, I can start with you, start with Dr. Gonzalez, but I would love for you both to share a little bit about where you see opportunities for allyship. You know, this might also just be my personal framework, but I've heard both of you speak about this, that for any initiative like this to thrive, we must come at it from an intersectional lens. We must think about people's intersectional lives and identities, but also that people, including our alumni, our staff, our faculty, our students who may not identify as Latinx, they also play such a critical role in the success of this initiative, but also the healthy well-being of our largest campus community from an EDI lens. And so I'm curious if you both would share a little bit about where you see those being opportunities in terms of allyship. You want to start, Liz? Go.
Yeah, well, I'll start by saying that, coming in, I was getting a sense of the landscape and what the narrative is on HSI, and because so much of the discussion has been around this enrollment piece, it goes back to what our Vice Chancellor Anna was getting at, which is the potential challenges of siloing groups with this diversity. And so when there's this discussion around limited to the aspect of enrollment, which is just one aspect of what it means to be an HSI, it's a very narrow aspect that is used for designation purposes. And so, I have to remind people that HSI is about, like I said, innovation. Let's take a look at what is working well. Let's scale it up. Let's look at our practices in advising. Let's look at our courses. Let's redesign to increase success in STEM, right? And if we can do that through a Latino lens, we could do that through an equity lens. We do it through a socioeconomic lens, a people-based approach, right? What are those experiences in the advising room? And so the goal of HSI is really institutional transformation. And so when this term is coined by one of our alumni, Dr. Gina Garcia, has really talked about HSI and servingness being about institutional change in our practices to meet the strengths and the needs of students. And so if we think about HSI as institutional transformation, then any student who comes through this campus should be positively impacted by that change, by that move towards equity and servingness. So I think that's one area of alignment. And then I'd be remiss if I don't mention Sylvia Hurtado. She has mentored so many of the alumni who have done the research on HSI. And she would point you to the research that shows that HSIs enroll more diverse students than HBCUs and then predominantly white institutions. So I think also structurally, an HSI institution is one that is also educating and preparing more than just Latino students. They're preparing a diverse student group. So anyone who's here to do the equity, to do the work of justice and equity is invited to this group. You don't have to be Latino, or you don't have to self-identify as that. And as long as you have that value and that passion to do the work of justice, there is a space to engage you.
Thank you. Thank you. Before I transition to you, Vice Chancellor, I just want to remind folks that we will have an opportunity for a couple of open Q&A questions. So if you have any questions, please email them to our diversity email. And that was just put in the chat one more time. So but I pass to you, Vice Chancellor, for your thoughts on this question related to allyship.
Denise, this is a good one. It's also a really tough one. And for everyone participating tonight, really excited to hear what comments, questions, feedback you have on this, and I'll tee it up in a couple of ways. UCLA in the past several years has instituted several UCLA-wide initiatives, and I'll just name a few. The first one was Rising to the Challenge, which came in the wake of the murder of George Floyd Jr., and it was a commitment to ensure the resources, the diversification of faculty, and much more around supporting a thriving Black community at UCLA. HSI came next. And the third, the most recent one, was the UCLA Native American and Pacific Islander Bruins Rising initiative. So from a campus-wide perspective, we have all three initiatives, which ultimately have similar end goals around equity and inclusion, which is to ensure that our faculty and in certain cases staff and employees and student bodies are all bringing in people that have often been prevented or disadvantaged from getting in a place like UCLA. And then when they're here, making sure that the academic mission, the research mission, the classroom experience, teaching and learning is where it needs to be. And then finally ensuring the whole overall experience is one that we can say is thriving. The challenge here, and I'm going to be at the end of a long day, brutally honest, and these are my own opinions and not that of UCLA. One of the challenges that have been raised to me about all of this, including HSI, but other things as well, is people like to think of it, well, if you're doing X for this group, what are you doing for my group? And this is a challenge that I'm very sensitive to and aware of from my time at the UN, because equity means there are some times where certain groups get different things, certain people, certain parts of the university, because they need those things to thrive in an environment where structurally it's not equal opportunity. And the tricky part is who gets to decide? What are the details? How does this unfold? Dr. Gonzalez and I have had a lot of conversations around this, and the hardest part, and this is a pivot to the Q&A, in America, how do we identify human identity? Is it the census form? We have a lot of people at UCLA who are putting us all on notice that if gender is fluid, why can't race and ethnicity be fluid too? If we're paying attention to certain categories, what's the distinction between religion and ethnicity? There's a lot of really important conversations being driven by the community. So it doesn't tie up neatly into these boxes. And then you add in the global community, our international students, people from who come to us and work here from around the world. And a lot of this just creates interesting dynamics, and it's not simple. So I think UCLA, in the end, all of us who are committed to its success, is in a unique position in this country, and dare I say beyond, to help lead the way and re-inspire people with different identities, make a place stronger, more innovative, but it requires more of us. We have to be willing to have critical conversations, honestly and authentically, work through where we get stuck, not be afraid to voice and then problem solve around real concerns. So it can't just be a commitment without the work. And I think that's where UCLA is headed in the next few years.
I really, really appreciate that. I think that you're reading my mind in terms of the next question, because I think I'm curious, and I'll start with you, Dr. Gonzalez, and then come back to you, Vice Chancellor, because I really, one of the things I hear the most, specifically in relation to everything you're naming, Vice Chancellor Spain Bradley, is this question around what does that mean for these other communities, a concern for other communities of color, for first-generation college students, for working class students who might have any number of backgrounds and identities. And so I think, Dr. Gonzalez, you're alluding to this, and what our dear faculty and mentor, Silvia Hurtado, would tell us in relation to how much this benefits a number of communities. I'm curious if you could share, when an institution receives the HSI designation, or as you get to know at UCLA specifically, how might this designation also increase the availability of resources and opportunities for other communities that historically have been minoritized or underserved at UCLA? Could you share with us maybe a little bit of some examples or opportunities you see?
Yeah, what really comes to mind is the work that UC Santa Cruz has been doing. the HSI team there, the entire campus, up to the chancellor, have really lived up to enacting, bringing to life the serving HSI. So I'll give you an example. There were key efforts that took a while, and they'll tell you that they are still not, they don't consider themselves still, a thriving institution, but they recognize that they've made headway. And that group was led by Dr. Pablo Regarin, who's now the Vice Chancellor of Student Affairs at UC Davis. But a concrete example is HSI takes an equity lens, but also works a lot with data. And so in the early stages of the HSI efforts there, they noticed the sheer number of underrepresented students. That includes Latino students, African-American students, first-gen students who were getting D's and F's in algebra. It was a pre-algebra course. And they said there's a huge inequity here. And then that has implications for students who came in wanting to do STEM. And then by the time, if they were still at UC Santa Cruz after 4 years, they were in a different major. They didn't get to fulfill their aspirations in STEM. And so they used this designation to propose an innovative project that redesigned this algebra course and flipped the curriculum, worked with faculty, created a model that engaged peer learning, innovated in this flipped classroom, all things that, aren't, those things are happening at UCLA too. But in that sense, in that example, they redesigned the whole curriculum. But then also, I think the most important part is that it inspired others. It inspired other faculty to look at their own courses and say, wow, are there inequities in my course outcomes? And if so, what could I do? And I think that was inspirational for me. They continue to inspire other campuses when they share that example. There's a number of things. They've redesigned advising. They've developed an advising training for microaggressions in the advising context, microaffirmations, may I say. And so I think those are concrete examples of how you're changing the practices at an institution.
I appreciate that example, because as I hear you sharing, I think about in some of the earliest times of the EDI office, Vice Chancellor Spain Bradley, I know there was an effort and to have equity advisors across the campus. It's about how do we mobilize, inspire, create resources and opportunities localized where folks are at. And so I'm curious if you have thoughts about this as well, about how this designation might extend more support and resources to many communities who are in need of that additional support to thrive.
So just to confirm, we still have our wonderful equity advisor program, and our equity advisors are some of our best diplomats, ambassadors, and assets of this values-driven mission. So a huge thanks to all of them. We also have the EDI network, so you can find this on the UCLA EDI homepage. We've been mapping, and we've mapped over 350 some leaders at UCLA who are here to advance these values in different ways, EDI and everything related, and also many, many initiatives. So I'd like to just challenge the lens of thinking about UCLA through any one program or initiative or designation, because I think what Dr. Gonzalez was getting at, and I agree with, and we've talked about, at the end of the day, it needs to be people-centric and values-driven, and the initiatives and the designations help us reach those aims. But to the point of student success and academic mission, being able to understand what all students need to thrive and what certain groups of students or certain individual students need to thrive in different disciplines is the goal. And that will be supported and driven and elevated through HSI, but also through other initiatives. But we still need to be doing it, and we should be doing it anyway. this is the structural embeddedness of our values and all that we do in our mission. So we have a lot of data at UCLA on a lot of things, and the UC keeps a great data. For anyone who's interested, you can find the UC Information Center and go through their interesting data charts and see a lot. From my vantage point in the leadership team, one of the challenges is the data doesn't make the decision for you. There are tough decisions that have to be made amidst often tough, shortages of resources. And that's where the values come in, because if you're values driven in your decision making, you're going to right the ship and chart a course. And I think that's what's exciting about HSI and getting to the point where we have that designation is it keeps the ship in the right direction for a lot of people, and not just students, but employees, people that work at UCLA as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think questions are coming in and we're right on time. And so we're going to transition a little bit to our Q&A and questions we've received. And so I appreciate both of you and what you've shared. And so I'm going to start with, if I can start with you, continue with you, Vice Chancellor. And as you're sharing, how do you also think about, I think the values, the people-centric, how we maintain this as we're witnessing across the country such incredible attacks on EDI type work, on critical race theory, civil rights, proposals to limit people's civil rights. How do you think about this and how we stay the course and grounded in our values as an institution while we're experiencing this context nationwide?
It is a moment in America. We've been in many moments. In 2016, my dad, who grew up in segregated South, and his parents were sharecroppers of tobacco, turned to me and said, "Look, Anna, we tried during the civil rights movement. It's your turn now." And that was one of the moments in my life where I took a really tough turn towards what am I going to do here, that led me ultimately to UCLA. I want to affirm that the dangers are real. And while I can't speak to specifics at UCLA or UC, I'm personally aware of people whose lives are in danger and whose physical property, mental well-being, reputations have been harmed by these kinds of attacks that are in many cases politically driven. As a law professor and a member of the law faculty, many of my colleagues were the founders of critical race theory. And it's amusing in a not amusing way to me what the public discourse has become, because it's not what critical race theory is. So, getting down to let's get the information right. And then if we have a disagreement, fine, but we're actually having misinformation. Secondly, the challenge for the DEI, so the attacks on critical race theory predate and continue to this day. And now we're seeing in this last year an uptick in the attacks on DEI. And we've seen what's happened in Florida. We see what's happened in Texas, many other states. So there's a lot of people in academia and higher ed and other places who are under attack. And again, one of the not so amusing aspects of this is the federal government requires higher ed under a Civil Rights Act, a number of federal laws, to do certain things that are under DEI. We are legally obligated as universities who receive public federal funds, and to then at a state level try to make some of those things illegal creates a classic conflict of law. So it's going to be really important to see if and how the courts handle these tensions. But on a human level, it's dangerous, it's harmful, and trying to be prescriptively solution-oriented about this, I think we need to call out the conversations. And where there are actual real disagreements about important topics, let's have those conversations in a professional and dignity embracing way, and get beyond the sort of the headlines and the quick talking points that are not really about the real situation. So thank you.
I really appreciate that context and the historical context you're giving as well. And I actually am curious, because this is related to a question we've received. Dr. Gonzalez, if I could ask you to comment on this as well. And the related question that I'm curious about your thoughts on this topic, and also what one of our alumni is asking, what should our elevator pitch be for why the HSI designation is important for our whole campus. I think that's related to what you're sharing, Vice Chancellor, is how do we also proactively represent our work and what it does and its positive impact, and also let's have these conversations. And so I'm curious, Dr. Gonzalez, if you could comment on, they're tied together. Yeah.
Yeah, it's intense, an intense time, but I appreciate Vice Chancellor Anna Spain Bradley, just the reminder that it's a moment that we must remain committed to our values. I think a lot about this word, like sustained clarity of purpose. And if we're talking about a values-driven mission, to me, it comes down to equity and social justice, and staying firm to that commitment in spite of larger federal discussions that are telling us what's right, what's wrong, and really tapping into what are our values as a community. Right here, we're all bound by our identity as Bruins who were nurtured by a public institution. So I think this question has come up all the time, and so we ground ourselves in the mission of equity and social justice, and also to reject these narratives that want to silo folks, reject narratives of the zero-sum game, and this is by Celia, my good friend, Dr. Celia Lacayo. You never defend HSI, you affirm. You affirm the value of equity and justice, and you reject these notions that will try to pit us against each other and play the zero-sum game. And so that would be my elevator pitch to folks who find themselves confronted with that question. And I hope that your commitment to equity doesn't waver, even in these moments when you're, I'm personally myself, it's hard to watch.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I think related, we have about 3 minutes. So I think I will say this is our final question, give you, so any final also, comments you want to embed, both of you, please do so. But if I may ask you both, what does success look like? As we proceed, for you both as scholars, as leaders, as people have been committed to this work for decades, what does success look like in relation to this progress and initiative that UCLA is making? And as you noted, Vice Chancellor, in relation to a number of actually initiatives to serve our students, serve our community. So if I could, Vice Chancellor, start with you, if you could share with us, what would success mean for you in the next couple of years?
So I'll wrap success, my elevator pitch, and my message of inspiration to everyone who's taken time out of your busy lives to be here tonight. In some ways, it's so simple. The future of humanity is up to us, and success looks like us treating one another with dignity every single day. So it's a journey. We will always wake up in the morning with challenges in front of us, but we don't have a choice. If we all want, humanity and the planet to be here, this is what we must do. So it takes the choice out of it. And I have seen enough at UCLA and all the amazing people that come through here and are here to know we can do this. So don't give up the hope.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Gonzalez, success, what is this? You've done this at other institutions. What is your hope for UCLA in terms of success?
I would rejoice in this work if at the end of the day, it brought people together. That really, like, at the end of the day, like, to have people come together as a community, to feel empowered, even when, everything around us might not, be the best environment for us to thrive. But if we can come together as a community, that would be success for me.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you both. We're perfect on time. I just want to underscore one more time how much I appreciate you for your wisdom, for your leadership, for your commitment to engaging in this lifelong work. The story of your father, Vice Chancellor, I remember the same messages I received from my family, how critical that this is what we live, this is who we are and what we breathe. And so it's such an honor to work with you, to call you colleagues on this campus. And I just so appreciate you taking the time tonight to spend this time with us and with our alumni. And so I just want to also bring back Andres, who is going to close us out tonight and share a little bit more about the Latino Alumni Association and their next steps and efforts. And as he comes up, I want to do one more plug for our next EmPower Hour will be on May 18th. And we're going to encourage and offer insight into how UCLA attendees can come back and complete the UCLA degree. So I just want to thank everyone. And I will now pass to you, Andres. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Denise. What a fantastic and inspiring event. Thank you so much, Vice Chancellor Anna Spain Bradley and Dr. Elizabeth Gonzalez, our UCLA HSI's inaugural director. It is an intense time. And I think that was like the sort of the, to me, kind of the way to sum up kind of the moment that we're in. And for alumni, I think it's a call to action. I can tell you that ULA, the organization, the UCLA's Latino Alumni Association, is committed to maintaining and affirming HSI at the center of the discussion about UCLA policy and initiatives affecting the Latino, Latina, Latinx community and the greater UCLA community. And there's many ways for alumni that are on the call that were also inspired by this moment in time. There are many ways to get involved, and I invite you to consider those ways. We are posting a link tree on the chat on ULA information about how you might get involved. We have, all the socials, the webpage, and all those things. But if you want to give of your time, there are ways to help keep this discussion going, because this is a beginning. There will be more events around HSI because it is a central issue to our organization and I think our community. That is how we got here today. We got here today by thinking that this event was possible, and we're going to make more of these kinds of events in the future. So that is one way to get involved. Just join a committee, join the organization, or become active in the organization, like I myself did as a volunteer, and all of my colleagues on the board of ULA do every day as volunteers. Get involved in an organization like this that can put on an event like this with the partnership of the Alumni Association, and again, bring this conversation to the forefront. So just think about ways in getting involved. We are very open, and we do get the and I'm just so proud that we got the recognition that we did this evening from both our esteemed speakers as alumni, that alumni are seen and that our input is valued. So we can get involved. Please consider doing so through our organizations. We put on a lot of different events. HSI now is kind of at the forefront, but we've just finished a very successful Jaquez family scholarship dinner a couple of weeks ago that raised, I think, a record amount of funds for scholarship. We are, if you want to consider giving, not only in terms of your time, but also in terms of money, we have a Spark campaign that starts up in June that funds scholarships that enable Latino, Latina, Latinx students to fulfill their aspirations at UCLA. So that's another way that you can get involved. There is career events. We're having an entrepreneurship panel that we're about to announce towards the end of May that, if you want to get involved in the planning for that, but it's just ways in which people who might want to start a business can get involved in that discussion around with other alumni and other UCLA Latino alumni. That's another way. So I just wanted to give those quick plugs about UCLA and ULA and all the things that we do. And again, just thank again all of the folks that made tonight possible. Our esteemed speakers again. Denise and Dr. Pacheco and her team, Kayla Long, Corey Rosas, who did a lot of the hard work in the background to keep us organized and keep us moving in the direction of a successful event. So thank you so much.